I have one last question for you.
Yeah.
How would you sum up the impact that this work has had on your life, and where you may see that going in the future for you?
For me, where is it going? Where has it come from?
Well, the impact first. What about the impact that you've experienced in your life since we've worked together?
Well, it's hard to know where to begin, Craig. I think when I first came to you, somebody had recommended you to me, and like I said earlier, I was, really at a point where I was super defensive and cynical, and I just was running a lot of negative stuff through my mind.
How was life working for you?
Well, it wasn't. I was really struggling to really grasp hold of any of my goals.
Okay.
I kind of knew what I wanted for myself. Well, I thought I did.
Yeah.
But I didn't have any control over my own emotions or thoughts. I didn't think that even existed, really.
Sure. Yep.
Once I started to bring to surface all the different fears and different things that I had that would manifest into unconscious behaviours, I felt quite liberated, because as soon as I brought those to consciousness, they were no longer trying to surface through other unconscious behaviours.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started to weed through all these negative thoughts and behaviours, I started to feel completely empowered, because then I knew I was coming from a more authentic place. I wasn't coming from this place of hurt or fear or trying to be something that I wasn't, which is effectively the way a lot of people are running at the moment. So I've kind of had my highs and I've had my lows, but each time I kind of go to a higher consciousness and I go back down to a lower place, I bring with it the intelligence from that higher place to understand that if I am going through a suffering or experiencing something challenging, that there's something to be learned and something positive out of it.
Yeah.
In fact, I get to the point sometimes where if I start to feel negative emotion coming up, I get excited that I've got something new to work with.
Fuel.
It's a fuel.
Yeah.
And it's also another thing that I can bring to consciousness and actually own and stop hiding from, which every time I do that, my life gets a little bit better and I feel a little bit more empowered.
Yeah, nice. And so what would you say to someone who is either new to this process or just hearing this content for the first time? What would you say to them?
Well, how do you feel? That's what I would say. How do you feel? Are you in a point in your life where you feel like there's something more? Or are you in a point in your life where things aren't working for you? If that's the case, I would say give it a go. I mean, there's no harm in trying. A lot of it is experiential for me. Getting on that table, I haven't always been intellectually able to understand exactly what's going on. But when I walk out of this room, I will feel something greater than myself helping to drive me to where I need to be.
Beautiful.
In whatever way that is. Maybe it is by bringing open all these things that I've been hiding and actually having to sit with something quite difficult for a while.
Yeah.
Or maybe it is a higher perspective that allows me to see things from a higher consciousness in a way that basically comes with less judgment and less fear and less ego and less ego. It's a perspective thing for me. There's a real shift in perspective for me.
Well, that's the way you're organised.
Yeah.
You lead with perception. The focus and meaning of something is very important for you. So when you have that front and centre, it can be an energy-rich experience. If you don't understand the meaning of it, or you're not focusing on that, your energy may be neutral or low as a result of it. So we've talked today a lot about orientation and organisation. Perspective is what you lead with. Okay. So I've got a couple more questions for you.
Sure.
Do you feel that that process that you've been through has been a sustainable process?
For the most part,
yeah.
I've had my highs and lows, and I'd often go back to old habits or old ways of thinking and different things like that. But I feel like that was necessary in a way, because I still had lessons to be learned.
Absolutely.
And I think if you do that, you know, it's important not to be hard on yourself. Because it's part of the for me it was part of the journey.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I just catapult into ascension straight off a
No.
week with you or something.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. Well, you may, but it's an experience. It's not a
Mm.
level change.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
that'll often bring you down hard because there's a lot of processes that will give you an ascension experience.
Yeah.
But you're going to land pretty hard if you
Yeah.
haven't got the infrastructure
Yeah.
to support that expansion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm organised in such a way that can bring that kind of intelligence to the difficult situations which I used to, you know, see myself as a victim or see myself as, you know, my well-being might have been more determined on the situations and circumstances that surrounded me rather than me actually realising that it's pretty much the other way around.
It's absolutely the other way
Yeah.
around. And so then, you know, what are you feeling about your future?
Well, I'm excited for my future. Yeah. I mean, yeah, good energy around that idea
Yeah.
of my future.
And do you feel that if for any reason there was a challenge or a situation that showed up today for you,
Mm,
that you would go into defence, or do you feel that you would use that that opportunity in a different way?
yeah, I mean, it depends on the sort of challenge because, as you know, I've had a few.
And we all,
Yeah.
I have.
But absolutely, I feel like I can take it with a higher perspective, kind of see it for what it's worth, and challenges aren't necessarily bad.
Yeah.
The idea of bad is something I feel like we've almost been taught.
Absolutely.
Just because something's difficult
Yeah.
doesn't mean that that's a bad thing.
Absolutely. And I guess when we have an expectation of how something should be and it doesn't fulfill itself that way, we'll judge it as good or bad or right or wrong.
In fact, even difficult's just as it's not even a thing, really.
Yeah, it's not a great or effective
Yeah.
perspective to hold on it, right?
Yeah.
And so what I believe that your system has organised itself to a point now where it's harder for you to see something as difficult or bad as opposed to seeing it as an opportunity or a
Mm.
gift or a possibility to create something from.
Mm.
So you'll find going back to that is even harder
Mm.
than going out there into where it's a more positive experience. Even if it's painful,
Mm.
it still allows us to have fuel for growth or
Mm.
to awaken to. So